In this video, we will go over how to use the Drape tools in our spatial products. The Drape tools allow you to drape a set of elements onto surfaces or onto the current view plane. These tools can be found in the Utilities tab in the Drape Project section, or can be searched for in the search bar. As you can see, there are three forms of this tool, and we will go over each one, starting with the Drape Selection tool. The Drape Selection tool is used to drape selected elements onto selected surfaces. These elements can exist in the same layer as the surface, or exist in some other layer. In this example, I have a set of points here you can see in blue, and I have a surface below. These points in the surface exist in the same layer here called points in surface. I would like to drape these points down onto the surface here. Before we bring up the tool, we will select the elements we want to drape, as well as the surface in the scene using one of the selection tools. Then, very importantly, before we open the tool, we will make sure we orient our scene to the correct orientation so that it matches the direction that we want to drape to. In this example, I want to drape these points down onto the surface, so I should view from a top orientation. As a shortcut to do this, I'll click in the scene and then hit the T key on my keyboard, and then I'll hit the F key to fit back to my data. We can now bring up the tool. As we bring it up, it brings up this following dialog. The first thing we will do is click Add Selected, and this adds the selected surface to the grid here so that the tool knows which surface it will be draping to. Then we can choose to have these draped elements go to an active layer, so any layer we've set as active here by right clicking and saying active, and the draped elements will be drawn to that layer. Or we can choose to have the elements draped in place, modify. So this will modify the source layer that they're in so that the draped elements are just changed in place right there. This is what we'll choose for this example. And now we can go ahead and say drape. The points have been draped, and we can exit this dialog. I'll unselect the elements here, and then I will do a rotate so we can see the results. And as we can see, the points have been draped onto the surface as I wanted them to. We will now go over how to use the Drape Layer tool. This tool is used to drape a layer's contents onto a surface or surfaces. So this means the elements exist in their own layer, and we want to drape that layer onto the surface. In this case, you can see I have these gray points here, which exist in the points layer, and I want to drape that onto the surface, which exists in the new surface layer. Now we will do a couple of things before bringing up the Drape Layer tool. Firstly, we will select the surface we want to drape to using one of the selection tools. Then we will make sure that we have highlighted the layer we want to drape in the layer control, which is the points layer in this case. And lastly and importantly, we will make sure we orient our scene to the correct orientation so that the tool drapes in the correct direction. In this case, we want to drape these points down onto the surface, so we will view from a top orientation. As a shortcut to do that, I will click in the scene and hit the T key on my keyboard to get to the top orientation. We will now bring up the tool. As we bring it up, we can see it's a layer operation that will be done on our points layer. And now we can click Add Selected. And this will add the surface we selected to drape to into this grid so that the tool knows which surface to drape to. Now, if we only wanted to drape selected geometries in our points layer, then we would have selected those elements we want to drape along with the surface before opening the tool, and then we would tick on selected geometries, and then we would say OK, and that would drape only those selected elements. In this case, I want to drape the whole points layer, so I will not tick this on, and now I will say OK. And the draping is done. A new layer is being created for me for those draped elements, and I will just give it a different name here. I will then just say OK. And we can see a new draped elements layer has been added for me. We can now analyze this by ticking off first this points layer that we draped. So we can just view the draped elements layer. And I'll do a rotate here to see how that looks. And as you can see, the point elements have been draped onto the surface as I wanted them to be. Finally, we will go over how to use the Drape to View Plane tool. The Drape to Viewplane tool can be used to drape selected geometries to the current viewplane that you are at in your scene. In this example, I have a set of points here that I have zoom fitted to, and if we look down at the bottom left, we can see that the viewplane is at an elevation of 1,700 meters. Now I would like to drape these points to a different viewplane, which is a viewplane of 0 meters, so basically a 2D plane. And to do that, I can use the Drape to Viewplane tool. First, we will select the elements that we want to drape using one of the selection tools. Then we will go to the exact viewplane that we want to drape the elements to. And to do that, we can use the mouse location element at the bottom here. Click on it, and we can see there are X, Y, and Z values that we can set. I will set the Z value to be 0. And then I will say set, and now I'm at the desired viewplane. I can then bring up the Drape to Viewplane tool. We can simply click Drape to drape the elements, and similar to the other Drape tool, we can specify whether we want these elements to be draped in place in their source layer and modified there, or draped to an active layer. I want them to be draped in place, so I'll leave it as that, and then I'll say Drape. And the elements have now been draped. I will close the dialog, and then I will zoom fit to these points I've just draped, and I will unselect them here. And if we look down below at the bottom left, we can see there is no more Z value, as I've draped them to a 0 elevation plane, and that is exactly where I wanted them to be, and I am done. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much.